Blessed to be with you on this Monday. Oh, my goodness. 2 days away. I didn't know what to do with myself, watching the shows, going crazy. Great to be with you and waking up on the right side. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. And don't forget the KIDO Talk Radio app. It's free. You don't have to go through a third party. Just go to the App Store or Google Play. And we hope to earn some real estate on your shows. We are on your phone. We don't try and spam you all the time with things, but if there's something important or we have a blog that we think that you might look for, please check out our app. And again, it's free. We want to earn that real estate. We're not entitled to anything. Each and every day, we appreciate you giving us, well, your listenership right here on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, and the aforementioned app. Joining us now, Dr. Rob Natelson from Denver, Colorado, a senior fellow in constitutional jurisprudence at the Independence Institute in Denver. Hopefully we'll have a better conversation than my intro. Dr. Natelson, good morning.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be back on KIDO.
Oh, good to have you. You know, it's tough. We appreciate you waking up early. You're not one of these East Coast tutti fruities. You're in the beloved Mountain Time Zone. That's
right. I get up with the sun like you. Actually, you get up before the sun, don't you?
Yes, sir. I do. You know, before we get into the red flag laws and everything else, your beautiful state, Colorado, at one time reliably conservative, reliably free and independent. Now, some say it's a toss-up or it's purple or what have you. What's going on in Colorado, and is there, can that happen in other Western states?
It's a grave situation, and it's largely caused by people moving from other states. I moved to Colorado myself in 1977 originally, and one of the things that I did was I tried to learn about the culture, to learn that things that went on in Colorado and in the West wasn't always the same as what I grew up with, and I tried to integrate into the culture. Now we see people coming from places like California and New York. They have no interest in integrating into the culture. They want to impose upon their new state exactly what they fled. The same sorts of things that cause everything from pollution to inequality to heavy taxes, crowding. They seem to be hell-bent on bringing it into the Mountain West. It's a very concerning situation. So one of the things that we've done, that we are doing, which I recommended as best we can, is to try to educate newcomers about what it means to be a Coloradan. It's not the same as living in Los Angeles.
You probably picked you picked the best year to come there. That was the year of the original Orange Crush, right?
Yes, that's right. We used to sit. My wife and I used to go camping. We're outdoor people, and we used to sit in the rain in our car, listening to radio broadcasts of the Broncos and hearing Craig Morton throw touchdowns.
And the reason why I know that is for a year we lived in Aurora during that time, so that was a wonderful time to be in Denver, the old Stapleton Airport, the old Mile High Stadium, and the like. What would be your warning or advice to people in Idaho, like Colorado? We're getting a ton of people in, primarily from liberal states. We can see the changes going on, at least in our largest county right now, where you have more Democrats coming in, more people from California, more people wanting to ban stuff. What advice would you give them, if almost like you could go back in time to warn the people of Colorado? What could you say to us here in Idaho?
Well, I'd have to think about this because I don't normally get this kind of question, but two things come to mind. One is there should be some kind of organized campaign, education campaign, explaining to newcomers what it's like to live in Idaho and how the Idaho experience differs from that of other states. The other thing I would suggest is don't subsidize growth. One of the things that, and I'm not saying you should necessarily use the power of government to oppose growth, but one of the mistakes I think Colorado made is that they adopted a number of policies, including tax policies, that actually had the effect of encouraging population immigration at the expense of business immigration. So a lot of people have come here without much actual means of support. And then you also have to be careful of your other laws. I mean, when Colorado legalized marijuana, one of the unexpected effects, at least unexpected by most of us, was that a lot of people would come wandering in here thinking that now that marijuana was legal under Colorado state law, still not under federal law, that Colorado was giving out free pot. And once they got here and they discovered there was no free pot, they didn't have the money to go back, and they now line our streets begging for money.
Well, we hope that that doesn't happen here, and that is a sad. We won't go into the marijuana argument. We're debating that as we speak. But Dr. Rob Natelson joining us from the Independence Institute, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio from Denver, Colorado. Let's talk a little bit about your state's red flag laws. We've shot those down here, but that could be happening across the country. The president saying that this could happen, expanded background checks. Whatever happened to due process, sir?
Whatever happened to due process, indeed. You know, the term red flag law comes from the 19th century. Legislatures in Vermont, in Great Britain, enacted laws that required that if you drove a car, and you went anywhere in the car, you had to have a pedestrian walking in front of the car waving a red flag. The purpose of it, of course, was to discourage people from buying cars and make them impossible to have, because you could only drive them at 3 miles an hour because you had a pedestrian in front of you waving a red flag. It was a law designed to punish technology. Red flag laws in this country are similarly designed to punish gun ownership. The purported reason is to prevent people who are dangerous to themselves and others from having guns. However, there's very little evidence that they work. I've seen 2 national studies now. One indicates that red flag laws may reduce the rate of suicide a little bit, but have no effect on crime. The other suggests that red flag laws may increase rapes a little bit, but have no particular impact on crime. So why in the world are we engaged in adopting these laws that have no proven track record of success, and, as you point out, Kevin, have severe due process problems? It seems to me that the reason for doing it is partly to obstruct the ownership of guns, take guns away from people who have not committed a crime, and secondly, as a way that politicians can grandstand.
And yet we have the president and the Republicans taking a look at these expanded background checks when they come back from their 6-week sabbatical.
Well, yes. I mean, this is a pattern that Republicans have. They get a media barrage on a particular topic, like firearms, and they might stand tall for a little while, and eventually they flinch. I mean, we've seen this over and over and over again. That's one reason why we've got a debt now approaching $25 trillion, is because when Republicans have been in power, they haven't had the guts to repeal the destructive and expensive programs that Democrats had adopted. They flinched, in other words. And you see this with the case with red flag laws. Now, to give credit where credit is due, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina wants to adopt a federal spending program that would pay states, essentially, for adopting red flag laws that do respect due process. It is theoretically possible for a red flag law to respect due process. However, you might respond to that, Kevin, by saying, well, first off, given the size of the federal debt, do we really need another federal spending program? And the other is, if you spend as much time around the political process as I have, you know that the best intentions get muddied. In other words, an attempt to adopt a red flag law that respects due process will be attacked by people as not doing enough to prevent gun violence, and eventually it will be loosened to damage or to interfere with due process. Something like that happened with the Colorado law. there were some very deep flaws in it, having to do with return of guns after a restraining order had expired, and return of a concealed carry permit. And the people who pointed out these problems thought they had gotten changes of the law that protected people's right to get their firearms and concealed carry permits back. Well, about 2 weeks after the law was passed, I read it, and I discovered two huge loopholes that essentially allowed the police to hold up the return of the guns forever, or excuse me, the return of the concealed carry permit almost forever, and also delays in the return of guns once the order had expired. So in the legislative process, something that starts out pretty decent may very well be gummed up, which of course is one of the reasons why Bismarck made his famous comment about laws and sausages.
I thought it was blood and iron, but that's something else. Dr. Rob Natelson joining us, a senior fellow constitutional jurisprudence at the Independence Institute in Denver, Colorado. Finally, Dr. Natelson, are you concerned with the comments by Kamala Harris and others that if they get in, they're just going to do all this by executive, not order, but executive decree, where we're talking mass confiscation, red flag laws, background checks, assault weapons ban, circumventing the Congress? Again, it sounds like she's cutting a promo for an MMA fight when she goes, I'm going to give Congress 100 days, and then I'm going to do what I want. Does that send a chilling message throughout the Republic if she's elected?
Well, it certainly frightens me. I mean, we have been engaged recently in an executive order war where every president seems to top every other president in executive overreach. You know, this is one area where there is broad consensus, I think, among liberal and conservative observers that the presidency has kind of gotten out of hand. If you pick up a copy of your Constitution and you go to Article 2, the president's job description is there in Article 2. Things like enforcing the laws and appointing judges and appointing other officers and so forth, making recommendations to Congress. The president is not supposed to be a dictator or a king. In fact, Obama even did some things that a king of England got run out for doing. And the president is really, under our Constitution, not supposed to be an agent of change or, a change warrior. The president is supposed to be an effective executive of laws passed by Congress. That's one area where we seem to have strayed from our founding era roots.
Dr. Natelson, if people want more information about how to get a hold of you or the Independence Institute, what can they do?
Well, let me make two quick suggestions. First, if you go to independenceinstitute.org, independenceinstitute.org, there's a tab for constitutional studies, and that's where my articles are written. There's also a book I've written for the layperson called The Original Constitution, What It Actually Said and Meant. It's available at Barnes & Noble and otherwise online. Well,
we'd love to have you back, and thank you for joining us in the part of the Early Risers Club.
Thank you. It's been great to be with you, Kevin.
Take care, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There we have it. What an astute young man, Dr. Rob Natelson, joining us. Talk a little bit about Colorado, how that state was lost to the libs, red flag laws, how they don't work. And let's face it, we could sit here and ask questions and be on the fence. But don't we have enough people on the fence? And this is where we have opinions. We fight for rights. We continue to hear what you have to say. But do the Democrats really want to keep people safe? Or is this just an effort to take your guns? Let's explore that next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you, Sean Hannity. Don't forget Dave Ramsey in between. And all available on the KIDO Talk Radio app. I want to thank our friend Victor Miller. No relation. We love Victor, saying, Kevin, sometimes the signal goes a little. He calls me and says, well, look, Victor, I'll get the engineers on it. But again, that's why we're working very hard to make sure that you can get KIDO Talk Radio anywhere, whether it's on our beloved AM signal 580 or our affiliate 107.5 FM, or our app, KIDO Talk Radio, in your App Store and Google Play. We're doing our very best to get the word out, and thank you again for listening. Coming up, Elizabeth Warren has a plan to take your guns. And let's face it, we can sit there and be like the Rudy Pooty, mamby-pamby, wishy-washy media and go, well, what do you think about guns? They want to take our guns. And the president needs to know red flag laws, background checks, whatever you want to call it. We've been fighting this contest for many, many years. Whatever you want to call it, we have thousands of laws on the books. I don't know how many laws we have on the books compared to the immigration law, gun laws versus immigration laws. We don't enforce those either, right? Let's enforce the laws that we have. Let's empower law enforcement to make a difference. It's funny, I haven't heard law enforcement come out in favor of the red flag laws. Have you? But we have everybody else wanting to take away your guns. Here is Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado.
If it does not come to the floor, we need to make sure that every week between now and November, we're making this a voting issue. I'm not saying just the politicians, I mean all of us.
They want to take our guns. Here's Crazy Bernie.
Poll after poll shows that overwhelmingly the American people want to expand background checks. They want to do away with the gun show loophole. They want to do away with the straw man provision. And more people agree with something that I have been saying for 30 years, is that assault weapons are weapons of war. They are military-style weapons designed to kill people as rapidly as possible. They should not be sold and distributed in this country.
Right. Thank you, Crazy Bernie. By the way, here is Congressman Steve Scalise. You remember, he was shot, almost killed, and yet nobody wanted red flag laws then. Congressman?
I have supported him on that. And in fact, we got a bill to President Trump's desk last year, the Fix NICS bill, which truly does go after some of the real problems we saw where people were falling through the cracks.
KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. Let's go to the phones, and we start with Liberty Linda on KIDO Talk Radio. Liberty Linda, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. You know, I'm with you, Kevin. I miss your show on the weekends.
Well, I miss being here. I go crazy. They lock me up in a room, and people say, why don't you go to the mountains? Why don't you go this? No, we've got a routine, and we got to hit the ground running the right way Monday morning, Liberty Linda.
Yeah, I agree. But we miss you on the weekends. So anyway, just let
between you and me, there might be we might be bringing back the live weekend show from 5 to 7. I haven't. I've been toying with that one, so we'll see what happens.
Well, you and Tommy Alquist are so busy all the time, you know.
I'm not as busy as Tommy, but Tommy's a worker, and we'll be hearing. We're going to have Tommy on very soon, by the way.
Well, anyway, Kevin, now to talk about Epstein. You know, number one, he knows he has lots of fake IDs. And number two, he has connections with people in high places. Number three, he has connections with people in low places. 4, he has lots of money. And I think he just paid someone, and now he's on a Pacific island somewhere having a nice cold drink with brown hair and a brown beard.
I think they got him. In my personal opinion, I think somebody put a hit on him and they got him.
Oh, and well, of course, you know, there's like 3 really good scenarios of what's going on here, and that's one of them. And, you know, I went with the other one for, you know, he's out there having fun somewhere because he has the money. And so anyway, that's one thought. And we don't know, actually, the whole circumstances are so strange around his quote. A lot of people are saying that it didn't look like him that have seen that picture or whatever. I haven't. I mean, this is very interesting. I listened to a show last night that had all these different scenarios, and so I'm really looking forward to all the different scenarios that your people call in with.
Well, we will get to that, Liberty Linda. You want to say anything to Liberal Steve since he's talks smack about you all the time?
Yeah. Well, hi, Liberal Steve. And I like Liberal Steve, but I disagree with almost everything that he believes in.
Well, that's a good thing.
So I'd like to hear him call in today and find out what he's up to. And,
well, we don't kind of. It's not the check-in show, but I'm sure he'll have a response to your challenge there.
Yeah, and maybe he'll tell us what he had for breakfast.
Yeah, that would be a sure recipe for tune-out. Liberty Linda, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay,
bye-bye. All right, what a sweetheart. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, man. And coming up, who killed Epstein? Was it himself or somebody else? But before that, guns was the topic during the weekend talk shows. Let's take a listen now on KIDO Talk Radio.
We've got Republican senators publicly saying, therefore, some type of background check. Lindsey Graham and Dick Blumenthal of Connecticut have these red flag laws. We have to take a look at what the final product is.
We're going to be monitoring and are monitoring social media to pick up these things when we see keywords that indicate that person is simply going to be a menace.
Mass shootings happen almost with a regularity where it's happening every day. I think this is the time to lead and take responsibility, to be a lot bolder than just small steps towards safety and security.
We know that mass shootings happen primarily in the United States, at least at this level. There's mental illness in other countries. There's video games in other countries. How do we take some modest steps to start getting these guns out of the hands of people? It's not just the mass shootings, it's the day-to-day killings.
Well, Congress Act. Joining us now, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News Radio, live from Capitol Hill. Rachel, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
Boy, a busy weekend, whether we were at the Iowa State Fair, whether we were watching the shows or out in the field, it was all about guns.
Oh, right, absolutely. And already the Senate is working behind the scenes on possible legislation when they return in September. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Richard Blumenthal working on red flag laws. Now, this wouldn't be any kind of overarching federal law. This would be helping states that want to have those laws have the resources they need to set up programs to do that. The District of Columbia here has red flag laws. There's Maryland, New York, some other places. And that would just allow law enforcement to temporarily take guns away from people who are deemed a threat to self or others. Now, it is complicated. Red flag laws could certainly be misused if you don't like your neighbor or something like that. But it makes you wonder, would they prevent what happened? And that the NRA is really speaking out about that, saying that these proposals won't stop the mass shootings. But I think that maybe the United States is reaching some kind of a tipping point when it comes to this. The president has made conciliatory remarks after shootings before, but I've never seen him go as strong as he did when he left Friday for New York and saying that he's talked to the CEO, Wayne LaPierre of the NRA, and says that he's confident they can work out something everyone will be happy with. They seem to have a wide gap there to be able to close, but the president himself calling for red flag laws, saying that people that are unstable should not have access to these weapons.
Many people are comparing this moment to the read my lips moment of George H.W. Bush. Saying that,
they are. People who are real pro Second Amendment maybe would feel betrayed by the president on this one. It is a political risk for the president, but he's done risky things before. And if you're somebody who would like to see more gun control, maybe President Trump is the one to get it done. I mean, other Republican presidents would probably not go this route, but he is. And looking back at other measures that have been taken, like the Brady bill that set up background checks to begin with, there were concerns then. There will be a run on guns. That didn't happen. People still can have guns, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what the Senate will come up with. The House has already passed something on expanded background checks. But Mitch McConnell has not taken that up in the Senate. I get the feeling the Senate would kind of start from scratch and then lean on the House to pass its version. So if they can even do that, I mean, they'd have to reach that 60-vote filibuster. So if you're someone who doesn't want tighter regulations, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but and we haven't been able to do a head count on who's where with what. But I get the feeling the Senate would put together something that the House did not think was strong enough, and you could see some deadlock there.
Right. It could go the way that many of these bills have gone before. It'll be fascinating, though. Many people say this is the president's way to reach back to those suburban voters that might be turned off by his actions and rhetoric, but that's dangerous when the base is a little upset. We remember, Rachel, back in the day when George W. Bush wanted to do the immigration reform, and his base rebelled on him with that one back in 2006, I believe.
Right, right, and they've never been able to do immigration reform, and that still hasn't changed. And quite frankly, they haven't been able to do much about gun control either. I mean, the last thing that happened was the banning of bump stocks. But other than that, the NRA, obviously a very powerful lobby, but there are folks who are, card-carrying NRA members that aren't necessarily opposed to expanded background checks. There are others who, see this as a first step of taking away Second Amendment rights. So, and that has to be balanced with what's going on in our nation. I also know that some senators are working on looking at countering violent extremism online and in other places, violent video games. But, people point out other countries have the violent video games and they don't see this kind of thing. So it's a multifaceted problem, and I think that they're looking at it from that angle. And, Democrats, of course, wanted the Senate to come back from recess to work on this, but they are working on it. They're just working on it behind the scenes.
Well, you're keeping an eye on them, Rachel. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Liberal Steve joins us now, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you for your patience, sir.
Late at night while you're sleeping, the red flag cop will come a-creeping, take your guns away. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, Mr. Miller. I'm afraid the day has come where we are going to turn into a non-gun country. Second Amendment will go the way of the paper basket.
Now, for people that are semi-familiar with you, even though you are a liberal, even though you don't like President Trump, you love the Second Amendment. You proudly practice the Second Amendment quite a bit. Isn't that correct, sir?
Absolutely. It's our founding fathers were geniuses. And what they'd been through and what they'd gone through. And
wow.
I mean, come on. George Washington was the first one to hand out Purple Hearts for liberals that fought against the British.
The liberals that fought against the British.
Well, the conservatives were busy selling them land here still during the war.
I see.
So, yeah, it's sad, very sad, because it thwarts the due process.
All right, this is not Conspiracy Tuesday, but we are going to get to this topic. Do you believe that Epstein killed himself?
Well, what did I say about Epstein a couple weeks ago on your show?
He wouldn't last long.
I said he better watch his back because.
Boy, did you see the stuff? And folks, the day that Epstein allegedly killed himself, documents were released from a civil lawsuit that had been sealed, saying that he had arranged massages, or that was the code word for relations with women or young girls, underage girls or women, whoever it was, with former Ambassador Bill Richardson, George Mitchell, former majority leader, a lot of big names that have been impacted by this.
Oh, Kevin, the sins of the wealthy are beyond imagination.
Now, I'm breaking protocol here, but for some strange reason, I feel a kinship with you this morning. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Kevin, you're my brother.
Yes, you are. We are brothers. Now, here at KIDO Talk Radio, one thing that I'm not fascinated on, but it's like a car wreck. Whether it's a powerful man like Epstein, let's even say Bill Clinton, or Roger Ailes, these guys have everything. And yet, I don't know if Epstein was ever married, but, Clinton, Roger Ailes, they cheat on their spouses. Roger Ailes commits all these acts against women. It brings him down. It rips him from Fox News. It takes away the tremendous amount of good that he did. Why do people do that? There are not enough hours in the day to, A, cheat on your spouse, but B, to keep up with the lies, and C, sexually harass people. Can you explain that to me?
It's called a disease. It's called a vice. And all men and women have vices in all different forms. And when you are that wealthy, any vices you do have, you will take to an extreme because of your power. And that's been since the beginning of man, since the one brother killed the other brother with a rock at the very beginning.
Yeah, but I don't get it.
So do you remember Serpico?
Yeah. Al Pacino?
Al Pacino played Serpico,
right.
But Frank Serpico was an actual cop.
Right.
1973, who tried to go to the police, his people, and say, hey, we got a lot of corruption going on here. A lot. And nobody would listen, so he went underground, and he's been in hiding pretty much ever since. But 75% of the police force were fired that were on the take.
Dude, I hear he's your neighbor in Homedale.
Yeah, that happened too. Epstein. So what do you think? You don't think there's...
I think they got him. I think they got him.
Well, absolutely they got him. Professionals went in, and it'll all settle, and it'll go away.
You know, the New York Post said, they interviewed a guy, there's no way that you could have killed yourself. And all of a sudden the guards don't check on him. He's off suicide watch. He's by himself. Just like Whitey Bulger. You know, they put Whitey in general population. Whitey lasted 2 seconds.
Have they found the head of the union yet?
Jimmy.
Who's that guy that gets... Jimmy, was it Hoffa?
Jimmy Hoffa.
Have they found him yet?
I hear he's in Ontario.
I hear he's in Homedale. Anyway.
Homedale, where all the stars reside, yes.
The red flag is wrong. It's going to take a lot of soldiers that come back from the last, still going on in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria. We still have soldiers there, but they're going to come back and they're going to get labeled with PTSD. They're not going to be allowed to carry weapons, and they won't be able to go to the court first and say, hey, I'm seeing a counselor, I'm okay, nothing's going to happen. No, they'll just take them. So it's sad, but it's true. It happens throughout history of mankind.
All right.
They take the weapons away, and you got nothing to fight with but sticks and rakes.
Right. Take the weapons away, you don't play. Coming up next, Brian in Nampa, Max in Garden City, and you, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Two topics here. No, it's not Conspiracy Tuesday, but we are talking about the issues that matter. Did Epstein get it? Many people think that he did. In addition to that, red flag laws. Are you ready to salute? Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. And don't forget the KIDO Talk Radio app. Brian in Nampa, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
They got him. I agree.
You believe they got it? You agree they got Epstein?
It's dangerous being friends with the Clintons. It's just, I agree with Dinesh. He put it out on Twitter. He's like, there's been a lot of friends of the Clintons that disappear when it's convenient. It could be a couple of different things. It could be that he just hit rock bottom and he couldn't deal with life anymore. That's a possibility. But he had a lot of intel on a lot of people that have a lot of power. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. If I had to put the odds of suicide, I'd say 2 out of 10 and 8 out of somebody got him.
Well, especially when they have you in that ward where you're by yourself and you don't have a lot of things to work with.
Let's talk about gun control and red flag laws and universal background checks.
Okay.
Where is the one place that they've got that? It's a prison. The only people that have guns are the guards. And there's still violence. We still get people stabbed. We had a guard here in Idaho that got slit from one side of his throat all the way to the other, almost killed. There's tons of violence in prisons. and the government still has guns and they overwatch you, but it doesn't keep you safe. If that isn't a reason right there why you don't need all this, I don't know what is. So I've got a message for President Trump. Now, you remember, Kevin, I called in and said he'll win when everybody else said he wouldn't. You remember that?
Right.
I got a message for him. You were converting me, President Trump. I did not vote for you. I like everything you've been doing. 2020, I was on the bandwagon. I almost went and got a MAGA hat just to piss off the liberals. And now guys like me and all my gun, and I know everybody thinks I'm a gun nut. No, I grew up in Idaho. My family, you talk about keeping Idaho, Idaho. My ancestors were pioneers that traveled here. They are hard, tough people. They took care of themselves. How do you think people like that feel about guns? They feel like I do. And I listen to social media. I listen to all this stuff. And I can tell you, the country has gone further left. So you're right, Kevin. He might get more. He got 20% of the Democrats to vote for him. He got more black people and Hispanics to vote for him. I don't know what they're going to do. But I know all the guys like me, if you touch universal background check, it's just a code word for most socialism. If you do red flag laws, it's more like communism. If you do that, we're out. We're done. So that's the vibe I'm getting from everybody I talk to. I know there's still these hardcore Trumpers out there, and I love you guys, and I'm glad Trump won over Hillary, but he's a Democrat and Republican close. And that's what I was afraid of. And that's why I didn't vote for him. And he was converting me. And I was starting to believe that, hey, this guy saw the light and he really is a Republican and he believes like we do. But if he pulls that, I'm afraid I don't know what's going to happen. I can't tell you if he'll win or not, but I know he's going to lose a lot of people.
Brian, thank you for the call. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Max.
Hey, good morning, buddy. Let's start with the Epstein story, shall we? In the 2 to 3 days before his supposed suicide, he'd been interviewed by people from the Justice Department, and according to everybody who, the few who saw him, they said he was walking on sunshine. He was feeling good. There were suspicions he was going to roll over on all of these people in exchange, possibly even for just witness protection. A guy who's looking at a reduced sentence or maybe no sentence, a guy who has that much on that many people, doesn't just suddenly kill himself by a mysterious means. I don't take suicide for a second. Number one candidate for murder would be the Clinton machine, the Clinton blackmail machine. I agree with the previous caller. The Clintons probably got him on behalf of a lot of other people. And red flag laws, what can you say? I have a personal friend who lives in Massachusetts, got into a shouting match with his wife. They took his guns away temporarily a year ago.
We don't need that. We don't need that here. Max, thank you for the call. Kevin Miller, good morning.